Was Pokemon Go a disappointment for you?
Yeah. You know what?
Welcome back
to the Up and Coming Artist Podcast. I'm Ben, an animator.
And I'm Christian, a filmmaker. Why not?
And, as we'll talk about in a second, soon to be married.
Whoa!
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. I am getting married.
In like 3 days at the release of this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I'm very busy at the exact moment that you're listening to this, by the way.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy.
And the way that we record this podcast is we have the interviews come way before we even release them. So I think the episode that you're about to hear, we recorded maybe 4 months ago.
It's been a while, but it was such a great time. It was awesome. You got to listen to our friend Maureen. She's great. But stay tuned because we got a few little updates coming up. A few little updates for you.
That's right. So in this episode, we talk about storyboarding, which really turns into world building with Maureen, which I thought was really awesome. It reveals my genuine lack of knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons. But maybe we'll talk more about that at the end of this episode.
Stay tuned and enjoy this episode with Maureen Martinez.
Did you know that in Viking times, like, women were like in charge of like all like finance and stuff like that because a lot of the men thought it was like witchcraft, like to be able to do it, and so women like were the only ones who they thought could do it, and yeah.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. I think that's still kind of true.
Yeah, right. They probably just didn't want to do the work.
Maybe
It's witchcraft, honey. I can't do it.
Only you can do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Up and Coming Artist Podcast. I'm Ben, an animator.
And I'm Christian, a filmmaker.
Oh, hey, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
When you said film right there, it made me think of something.
What did it make you think of?
I was thinking about how do you even go about setting up a shot for a film?
Well, typically, what they use in the industry is something you would call a storyboard.
What is that?
I don't know. Why don't we ask our guest,
Maureen Martinez. Hey.
Welcome on.
That was really cool. Why do you guys do that?
We'll just like make it up.
Just make it up as we go.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Yeah?
I'm good.
You were just commenting on the lighting in here kind of being like a D&D campaign type room.
This would be perfect for my campaign. Just like the ambiance in here. It's great. Just the dark, the single table and the darkness, the one light illuminating everything.
Yeah.
Just casting the perfect shadows on all our faces. It's great.
Usually I just sit here and think about all the things I don't have.
Don't have
But enough about us, more about you. So, like we said in our cheesy little intro, Maureen is an animator, an illustrator, but most importantly, a story artist.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to talk about today. But before we get into that, is there anything else that you want to add to the brief description of you in art?
Oh.
Because you've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that's about right. That's good.
The major landmarks. But
Yeah.
you also, we were just talking about this too, you also teach kids, and you've done that for a while, teaching them art.
Yes, I teach 2nd and 3rd graders art at FIBO Art Academy, and it's really fun and rewarding, and I love it, and I do have my favorites.
What areas of art do you teach them?
We pretty much just go through like all the mediums, just all the non-toxic mediums, so it's like watercolors, acrylics, chalk pastel, graphite, colored pencils, things like that, just like the basics, and then like teaching them how to use it correctly.
So no uranium.
No uranium.
That's a bummer.
I don't think you can use that at all.
Yeah. The art of war.
Oh, okay, alright.
Is it usually still lifes? Or?
No, actually it's like they like use like a tablet that has like the like drawing steps on it. So the drawing steps are like all the same, and then they like add their color to it, and I help them with that part.
Oh, okay.
So like a lot of the projects look the same, but then they all look different. They all look the same, but then they all end up looking different when the color and everything else is added to it.
Is it too early to be kind of introducing color theory to them, or is that...
No, we actually have a section called color theory.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
It's very simple. There's like analogous colors, complementary colors, tertiary colors, primary, secondary. It's very simple, but just to get them thinking about it.
Super cool. And so that actually makes me want to transition into
because we never had a class like that when we were kids. But how did you get into art originally?
I have memories of me just always drawing and making up like characters and coloring them and creating like these little worlds around these characters. But I wasn't actually like gonna be an artist when I was younger. Both my parents are medical field, so like they always pushed medical for me.
Right.
So art was never like an option. So I was just like, oh, okay, I'm totally gonna go into medical field and go like be a nurse like my mom.
Yeah.
And I was actually like out of high school going to community college, and I was ready to transfer to nursing school, and I just had like a mental breakdown. And I was like, I want to be an artist. And of course, my parents gave me a little resistance on that. But they ultimately like supported me and gave me like all the tools that I need to succeed. And they like paid for school, art school, which was like amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I like, it was just my calling. Just like, it was just something I always did. And I didn't want it to be a side thing. I wanted it to be my main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're talking about drawing characters and coming up with stories. What influenced you to like do that?
I drew a lot of Pokemon characters. So like Pokemon definitely influenced that. Like I would draw my own like Pokemon like trainer that was like me, and then I would draw like all my other Pokemon, and I would like create new Pokemon. And I don't know, just like I liked building worlds, like really cliche worlds.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And was it from the cards, the Pokemon cards, or was it from the show?
The show.
Yeah.
And I had like a giant poster of the first 100. Like,
nice.
It was just like the first 100 just all like in a line just down, and I had it up, and it was the best thing ever.
Yeah. Those are the only Pokemon that exist to me.
Yeah. You know that they have ones now that are like a chandelier and like a candlestick, and I'm just like, what's happening right
The
now?
one that's like car keys now
There's one
too?
with car key. There's one that's garbage. Like a garbage. Like it's like just a pile of garbage.
Is nothing too low for them now?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was asking about if it was the show or not, because is that what got you originally into animation? Was like watching animation?
You know what? I actually never knew animation was a thing until I started community college and like starting to go for my art degree. And then I started meeting people in all these classes who had all these other aspirations about like what they wanted to do with their art degrees. I just wanted to go and just do art. Like I had nothing. I didn't know what I wanted. I felt like I started late in the game because not only did I finish like all my prereqs for nursing, and then I'm like, well, I have to start over now and do all my art prereqs. So I definitely started like my art journey a lot later than I think other people did. At least that's how I felt, like, especially going to Cal State Fullerton. Like, saw people were just so good already. I'm like, oh no, like I'm really behind. Like, is this right? Should I just go back to nursing? Like, I have everything. Like, but I definitely just had to like keep pushing through and like keep pushing through my own doubts within myself. But no, it definitely was not an option for like I didn't know animation was a thing until I got to college, and then I just like started bouncing around ideas of what I could be using my art degree for.
Wow. That's awesome. And I think that's cool too, is like my little segue to bring me into this story is the way that we met was in the traditional animation class, I believe, at Cal State Fullerton. I think that was the first class we had together with
Brian.
Ken.
Yeah. That was a horrible class. Like, it was just hard.
I was about to say that was my favorite class.
It was horrible for me because I just decided that I wanted to do animation, and I started in this class, and now I'm like, is this what it is? Like, oh my god, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I loved it, and it was also like just very terrifying because the bouncing ball, he made me do it over like 15 times because it wasn't right, and I was like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
The ball's bouncing.
I don't.
When am I going to animate this anyway?
Right.
No, but what I was going to say about that, to bring it back around to what you were saying, is that feeling that you had about like, oh, everyone's better than me. I had that when I saw your work, because I remember it was in that class.
It was in that class?
It was in that class, and that same semester, I remember, this is a small story, you won't remember it. I was waiting for some other class in the D building, and you were walking out, I think, of Joe's life painting class.
Okay.
You had this like amazing thing that you painted in like 3 hours or something crazy, like which is really short for people who don't know anything about art. That's crazy fast. And it was like, you know, the model looks so good, and you're like walking out there, it was like, how's class? And you're like, yeah, it was okay. Like, I just did this, like, whatever. And then you went to go, like, put it away in, like, the locker, and I was just like my jaw's dropping. And I was just like, because I hadn't taken that class yet, I was just like, dang, I gotta get good.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so.
No, I struggled in that class. It was hard, man.
Oh, it was really good.
Thank you for saying that.
That was awesome. So anyway, we got to you getting to school. And then what we want to talk about mostly tonight is you as the story artist.
Okay.
So when did storyboarding come into the mix after you kind of discovered animation?
In Wendy's storyboarding class, like that's when I decided I wanted to do storyboarding. Because before that, I decided I wanted to be an environment artist, like doing backgrounds. I'm like, I want to do a background. Background sounds fun. Like I like to paint. Like I was taking Joe's class too. And I'm like, I like to paint, and then digitally painting, like it's about the same. Like I could totally see myself as a background environment artist. And then I took Wendy's class, and it ruined me because I loved it. And I was just like, forget environments. Like what's environments? Like I want to do story because it was just so cool. Like it was just a cool, I don't know, it just like clicked with me.
Yeah.
It was my thing, and it's never stopped being my thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I think it's cool too to look back on like your beginning in art and how you created worlds and stories with your characters. It's cool that that carried through, and that was like kind of the through line of art for you.
That second semester when we started doing our, like, really getting into our own stories, that's when I started really finding the love for it, because I was now creating my thing for me. It was really cool, like, seeing something from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. When we started with, like, character design, we'd written out our story, and then having her tell us that, like, oh, it can change, and it will change, and mine definitely did. And now just, like, taking that story and, like, expanding on it, it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, so this was freshman
Oh,
year,
no, that was, like, the second to last semester.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, so it was late in the game for me when I decided I wanted to do storyboarding. I was, like, the last year, like, the beginning of the last year for me at Cal State Fullerton.
So did you spend the rest of your time focusing
Yeah.
there? Yeah,
100%.
And she did too, because I remember in that same class. Sorry, I'm just gonna tell stories about our time at school. I would be gathering like Ryan and like Robert and Ashley, like, hey, let's go grab lunch. Hey, Maureen, you want lunch? And you're like, no. And you're like at the tablet, just like drawing and like all this stuff, like going crazy. And it was because you just loved it so much. You know, you probably didn't even notice that I asked you, because you're just like, go, 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 go. And you put out a ton
I
of
don't
work.
remember. I probably didn't notice that. It's just probably, I don't remember that.
In fact, if I may tell a story, I have only met you once before, and you probably don't remember. I came to a film festival, and everyone was partying and hanging out except for you. You alone were in a back room. I think this was
The animation room.
You were animating or doing a storyboard back there all by yourself, and it was like basically a closet, like a glorified closet.
Yeah, it was that animation.
It was
class,
like, yeah,
and
yeah,
you were doing
yeah.
the final.
So I went back there, and everyone was partying, laughing, and having fun, except for you working like a mad dog back there. And it was just like, and to me, it hit me. I was like, this person's dedicated. They care.
Aw, thanks.
So you kind of focused on storyboard, and you finished up at college. And so where did you go after you graduated?
I felt like I could have had one more semester. I feel like in that last semester, I don't know how you feel, Ben, but like in that last semester before we graduated, like I felt like I understood everything 100% completely. And I feel like if I had one more semester, I really could have like pushed all my boards really quickly, really well. Mm-hmm. And being done after that, I was like, no, I need one more, just one more.
Yeah.
Just one more semester, it'll be fine. Like I can do it. But after, I mean, I just went to work full time, and then working on just my portfolio constantly. And since then, I've produced a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And from like a longer board and story to really small ones that just like are about the small things in my life. Like I have this really funny one of my boyfriend, and I don't know if you saw, where backstory on him, he absolutely loves mountain bikes, and anytime he sees a bike, he has to like judge it. And I did a board on that, him judging a bike, and it's 100% accurate.
It's amazing. I love it. He like goes into like his mind and like it's like this techie space of like comparing the specs and all this stuff.
No, that's 100% true. And then he came back after I was finished. He's like, yeah, that's pretty much what happens.
Yeah. Well, I did want to get into your storyboards real quick, but before we get into the story aspect of it, I kind of want to get into the technical side of storyboarding.
Okay.
So, since we were talking about school and what you learned, and now what you've done in your portfolio, what are some of the most important aspects of storyboarding in your perspective?
Okay, so definitely clarity, making sure everything's clear, that nothing's confusing, and that everything hooks up really well. Perspective as well, but clarity and appealing drawings. Yeah,
that's an animation term for sure.
Yeah. Making sure that they don't need to be like perfect, they just need to be appealing. Mm-hmm. Like the drawings themselves have to just look good. Mm-hmm. That's super important. And constantly telling yourself, which I've been doing lately, is this the best shot to tell what's happening, like to tell the story? Because I've drawn something thinking it's the best, and then I have to ask myself, is this the best way to tell the story? Is this the best shot for this scene? And many times I've been like, no, there's a better way to do this, and I'll have to like erase it or like do a couple and then like delete the ones I don't like. I've been doing that recently. It's been really helping because a lot of the critiques I got from like reviews and like CTN and things like that was my shots were very flat. Like they all looked the same. So to combat that, my solution was telling myself, is this the best way to tell the story? Is this the best shot for this scene? So that's how I've combated that.
That's awesome.
That's super important because that's the biggest critique I got, and I'm tired of hearing it. So like, I'm really making efforts to correct that.
So when you're talking about your variation in the shots that you have, are you talking about how wide they are? Are you talking about what elements within the frame or the composition?
Yeah, composition, 100%, and like my perspectives, doing more dynamic shots. So like doing up shots, doing down shots, really breaking up the board so that if you just put like black and white on it, like made the background black and then put your characters in white, you can tell that there's a variation of shots and it all doesn't look the same.
And I want to clarify, you're doing storyboarding for animation.
Yeah.
Okay, so not for live action.
No.
So I'm a live action guy, and I just want to ask you, do you guys use similar tools as far as like lens millimeter or those sorts of things to distinguish between the kinds of shots that you're drawing?
Okay, so I've done like 2 commercials freelance for live action. It's just different. So the first one I did, like I just took it as like, okay, well, here we go. I'm just going to try and do this. And because I looked up a bunch of like what commercial storyboards looked like, and they're definitely more like beats, and they're just prettier. Like they're just more refined drawings. And I'm like, all right, I can do that. So I wasn't really thinking about anything that you were specifically talking about, like millimeters or like camera angles and things like that. Just like the normal camera angles that I was used to, like for animation. And just looking at what I saw like on Google, just like, what is a storyboard commercial look like?
What did people do before the internet?
So if there's someone else interested in doing the kind of storyboarding you do, is there a whole separate language you have for animation storyboarding versus live action?
I didn't hear any complaints, but I didn't really apply anything different to the live action stuff. I just made it look prettier and like the stuff I saw on Google. But I'm sure there is when you get down to it, like for longer feature films in live action. I'm sure that there's definitely like a difference that I could not do as an animation story artist.
Yeah, okay.
But I didn't hear any complaints and I got paid, so
That's awesome.
I didn't even like, okay, whatever. I did something right.
We all here have worked enough to know what a storyboard is, obviously. Can you explain why storyboards even exist? What exactly do they do within the filmmaking process?
Like, okay, so I think storyboards are kind of like the skeleton of a film. That's what I've always told somebody, especially my parents, who constantly ask me, who still think I'm a graphic design artist when I'm not. But the way I explain it is like, if you look at a film as like a full-bodied person, you have the skeleton, which is everything in pre-production, which is like all the character designs, all of the storyboards. It's the skeleton. Then you have like everything else that goes into it, like the models and like the animating and everything like that, and the backgrounds, and putting it all together is you have your person and you have your full film. Storyboarding is kind of like, I like to think of it like a comic of the entire film. It's just like this person's standing up, they're going over here now, and it's not animated, it's just like a comic.
Okay, so you're like communicating to the rest of the team, basically, this is where the characters need to be at what time. Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
got it. Cool. So it's like a very detailed comic book.
Yeah, very detailed comic book.
That's a pretty good description.
And a lot of work goes into it. And so I kind of wanted to go back on something that you were talking about earlier, which is about planning your shots. So when you're talking about, getting that variety, and I know Christian kind of already asked about that, but in terms of the storytelling, how does that change your shots, right? Depending on where in the story you are.
So when I have a story in my head, I will do almost like beats, a beat board of the shots that I definitely want in my storyboard. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely want this up shot, I definitely want this down shot, I definitely want this like wide shot, I want this, like I'll do kind of like a gray, black and white like thumbnails of the beats that I need to have, and then everything else is in between.
Okay.
That's and then I usually do that in Photoshop, and then I make them really look really pretty, and then I put them up on my second monitor, and then I'll do my board so that I can keep it going.
Well, that's cool.
So a beat board is almost like the keys.
Yeah.
And then you do all the in-between later.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like animating, but storyboarding.
Yeah.
But not animating.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I guess my question to go along with that is, how do you decide then, like you were talking about, like, how is this the best shot? So when does that upshot come up? The iconography of shots, if you will.
Okay.
What does an upshot, for example, imply to the audience, perhaps, say in a story?
Well, it could be like ominous. Like maybe your character is about to battle the boss, and an upshot can show the ferocity of the boss. And then a down shot could show like the smallness of your character and like this giant mountain that they have to climb to get to like their goal. Mm-hmm. That's what it conveys. It can convey.
So you're choosing your angles as well as whether you're pulled in or pulled out based on what the characters are feeling.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I'm a firm believer that your characters like tell the story, and I don't try to tell it for them. I've changed I have a story that I absolutely love. I could definitely see as like a short or like as a series. But I was trying so hard to like force my characters to be a certain way, and they were fighting me, and I was having trouble like getting the board done. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here. I need to like back up a second and let them tell me how they want to feel. Mm-hmm. And my meek, very shy character turned out to be like this hard, like really edgy character, mm-hmm. and that's what's helping me like push everything forward.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So let's transition into that story side now.
Okay.
What is this story?
It's loosely based off a D&D campaign. It definitely feels like a D&D campaign. But it's about Goldilocks, Red Riding Hood, and a goblin. And Goldilocks is your rogue. She like steals things and is like really good at picking locks and all that. And then you have your tank that's Red, and she's just like the fighter type in the story. And then you have the goblin who wants to be a wizard, but like goblins can't be wizards, so he has to like get over that. I haven't quite figured out the whole story. I just have these like little ones. I haven't thought of like the bigger arc that needs to happen, but it's coming to me in like little spurts. I have like 3 or 4 stories that I'm working on at a time. So when I start feeling like one's not giving me much, I'll move on to another one that I feel more like that I feel like I'm having more momentum with. Mm-hmm. For that story, for the Goldilocks one, I called it Twisted Tales. Mm-hmm.
I love alliteration, so A+.
Yeah. So for Twisted Tales, what I'm thinking of right now is that Goldilocks has like roped these two in to look for Pan's gold. So like Peter Pan, Pan's gold, because she wants to be rich, and she said she'd split it with the other two if they help her.
That's awesome.
I know that I want Red Riding Hood to try and avenge her family who was killed by the wolf, but the wolf isn't quite a wolf, it's more like a gang. Or like a
wolf pack.
Like a pack. Like, yeah, it's not like a gang or like like mafia almost.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome.
Nice. So when you go about writing these sorts of things, do you have a process, or is it just as it comes to
As
you?
it comes. I really should write down a script. I've been watching a lot of like YouTube like videos on like how to tell a story and how to tell a story well, and they're like, yeah, you can draw it, but I think like writing it out is really good too. And I'm like, yeah, I probably should write it out. Like just start writing out the story. But
Well, that's awesome, and that brings up another aspect that we touched on a little bit at the beginning of you and your D&D campaigns, because you are a master storyteller as and what's the word again? The person who tells this.
I'm the DM.
The what?
The DM, Dungeon Master?
Yes, that's it. Jeez, I don't know enough. I really should research before I start these things. But you've been a dungeon master for a while, right? And you've told lots of stories.
Yeah, I love being Dungeon Master because it's really hard, especially when you set up a beautiful like story over here, but they want to like poke a rock over here. Like the characters want to go. Like I'll be like, there's a castle, and there's like a giant cloud, making thunder and lightning come down and hitting it. And my characters are like, yeah, that's cool and all, but I want to go over here and talk to this like elf. And I'll be like, so you have to really think on your feet when your characters like don't go the way you want to. So you have to really like quickly figure out like, okay, who's this elf? Yeah. Like in that moment, because you can't take a lot of time because then the story loses its momentum. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I had to be like, he is a traveling tradesman and he is trading fairies. And then they start asking questions, and then I have to think of how to like try and get him to point out the castle. And at the same time, my characters are like, no, I don't want to go to the castle. I want to go over here now. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah. This fairy trade slavery is interesting to me.
Yeah, and then they want to go on like a righteous pilgrimage and free all the fairies, and I'm just like, this is not where I want it to go.
Like, good thing they're at the castle. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I think what I'm getting to with that is not only are you a storyteller, but just kind of what started you in art in general is creating worlds. You're doing that through your storyboards, through D&D, and then through your art and illustrations in general. In fact, you just did some illustrations kind of along the Scarecrow and...
Witch.
Yeah, Witch. Those were so good. Is there a story there?
Yeah, that's actually the next board I'm going to work on, because right now I'm trying to finish my breakdancing chicken really hard.
With the blue shrimp.
Yeah, with the blue shrimp, because it's hard. That one's really like fighting me.
Haven't seen this.
Please
delight me about this
later. It's gonna be good. I'm about more than halfway done with it. It's just I'm having trouble ending it. But the Scarecrow one, I wanted that to be a little darker. I want it to be very dark Disney, in a way. I want it to be more a feature board, not so much a TV board, because I do a lot of TV boards, but I want a feature one because a lot of the applications that I have out are to feature ones, like to feature studios, and I need a fantastical feature.
So is there a difference between the way you would go about doing a feature board 100%. Versus a TV board? What are those differences?
100%. So feature, you need definitely more dynamic shots, like a lot more like establishing shots, a lot more like you need more fantastical shots, whereas in a TV board you can get away with being flat a lot more because you need it to read really well, and you only have a short amount of time to tell the story. You don't have a whole hour and a half. You have only 20 minutes, and so you can kind of get away with a little bit flatter perspectives and stuff like that. But you do need to break it up still, like with a little bit more dynamic shots, but you need like more of that in feature, I think.
Got it. So like, this is a question. In TV show, you're more focusing on the dialogue and perhaps the simple storytelling elements?
Yeah, definitely. In feature, I think you have more time to do the slower shots and like to rely on the character acting, not so much the dialogue.
Got it.
Yeah, I want that board in particular to be silent. So I want it to all be character acting and no dialogue whatsoever.
That's awesome.
It's really hard to do though.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask about that. Like, what are some visual devices that kind of help you with that?
I do take a lot of pictures of myself, like, doing the thing that I want them to do. If I can't think of it, or if I can't find it on YouTube, like, the breakdancing chicken one, I can look up, like, breakdancer move slow motion, and that helps me a lot, because I cannot do any breakdancing as much
Wait,
as
I had that as your list of talents.
Oh, man, we have this cardboard box sitting right next to us.
It's so funny. So when I can't find the shot online, I'll go out and I'll like take a picture of myself, or I'll use my sister a lot. I use her a lot, like to like, okay, when I'm over at my parents' house, I'll be like, okay, Rebecca, quickly, like do this really quick. And I have my phone and just snapping shots of her. So yeah, taking references myself and then finding reference on the internet. I do that a lot.
So, I mean, now that we're talking a little bit more about technical, what programs do you use?
Storyboard Pro and Photoshop, and those are pretty much my two go-tos. Storyboard Pro
And your phone.
and my phone and my camera, yes. But
what camera do you use? Does that
I
my own?
have a T3i.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very nice. That's a good model.
yeah. It's
Very popular model.
I know, it's really beautiful.
I was gonna say, so you were talking about using reference. Is that something that you'd recommend to other students and
100%.
people learning? Yeah, and then what other things might you recommend?
Okay, so I definitely recommend like reference. I didn't like reference. I felt like going to school, like I didn't think I needed it. I'm like, no, I have everything in my head. Like I can do this. Like I'm a genius. I'm the But no, reference is super important because you can't think of everything. You can't like get every detail you need. So reference is very important, and I figured that out slowly. But I learned it, and getting familiar with the software that's in the industry as quickly as you can, so that the learning curve isn't so bad when you're really trying to get your good stuff out there. So learning about that as fast as you can, and just drawing every day.
Yeah,
Every day. You need to draw every day.
that's awesome.
All day, every day.
And
I'll say every day.
since we mentioned Storyboard Pro already, that is the industry standard, right? For storyboarding.
Indeed. Weirdly, that's the standard for a lot of TV places. And feature places, I found out, Photoshop is the standard. Like at Disney, like when I went there for a storyboarding workshop, like event through Women in Animation, I find out that it's Photoshop that they use.
Oh, interesting.
They don't use Storyboard Pro. At least at the feature place.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And so, thinking about that, as we were talking about you working on feature boards, you've worked on TV boards, you've worked on commercial freelance boards, you've had all these stories. So, as we look to the future and the art of Maureen, what kind of projects would you like to do?
I would love to work on TV boards. I would love to work on an animated film, 100%. I do want to do feature eventually. I just feel like TV is like the best way to go. Only because, I mean, I've heard all my teachers tell me that, or tell us, like especially one day she says like it's easy to transition from TV to feature. It's hard to do feature to TV. If you start off in one of them, like start off in TV, that way you can get quick. And then when you get to feature, you can it's easier to slow down. Like it's easier to like slow yourself down and like really think about your shots and not so much on like a deadline, a quick deadline anyway. I don't know, just TV seems like a lot. It just seems fun. Like it seems like a lot of fun, at least from what I've seen, what I've heard. Yeah, TV's where it's at for me right now. That's the goal.
And you feel more comfortable with the pacing in TV, the fast pace, always having to turn around.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like if I were to get into a feature place right now, I feel like I would start panicking because I keep having to tell myself, okay, it's the best way to tell the stories. It's the best way to tell the story, and I can only do that so many times with one before I'm like, I don't know how else to tell the story.
You're just too prolific. You just have done too many drawings. So we heard about your goal kind of for the industry. Like, okay, I want to, be able to board this, board that. Is there anything that you want to make? Because storyboarding and D&D is kind of a directorial role. Is that something that you'd ever considered
Yes.
doing?
Oh my god, yes. I dream about that. Like being a showrunner. Oh, yes, 100%. I can totally see myself like directing a show and of course my own show. That'd be amazing. It's like the dream.
And what is a showrunner for people who haven't heard that term before?
Oh, just someone who like creates the show and then tells like other people how to like draw the stuff for the show. And then you get to have the creator thing on the story.
On the theme song.
And the theme song. Yeah.
Well, that's super cool. So, what advice would you have for students or people who are on their way to nursing school but are thinking, hey, maybe storyboarding is for me? What advice would you give them?
Follow your dreams. Always follow your passion. That's super important. I tell all my students that, like, always follow what you really want to do. Like, if art's your passion, like, stick with it. Don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't follow your passion. Because I feel like I could be a lot further if I had known it was an option or felt like it was an option. Another thing I would say is network. Network hard. All so hard. Like, just join every group. Join, like, Women in Animation. Join Latinx in animation. Like, join everything you can. Just pay the yearly subscription and just do it because it's so important. Like, I just went to really cool. I think I sent it to you. It's called the Brick Summit.
Yeah.
Dude, it was so awesome.
Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yes.
I'm glad you said yes. I was going to go, she says no, what am I going to do?
Cut it out. You're the editor.
Yeah.
Dude, it was amazing. It was all about, like, getting women and other minority groups into creative leadership roles. And it was all day. It was from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. And it was just, like, panel. And then we all got into groups and we discussed, like, how we could inflict change. And then it was, like, another panel and we got another group. And, it was really taxing. Like, it was pretty intense. But I think me and only one other girl were the only ones there who weren't in the industry. Everybody else was, like, hiring managers at Disney. I was at a table with, like, 4 Disney people, like a director, and then, like, a visual effects director, and then, like hiring manager, and I'm just like, I'm out of place here. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. But they all made me feel really warm and welcoming, and I just, the next day, I just started, like, LinkedIning people, and, like, shooting off emails that I got, and I've gotten pretty good response back, and I'm feeling pretty good about my future, and hopefully. Yeah.
That's super awesome.
Networking, 100%. Go to everything that you can go to.
And for those listening, and you just mentioned the one that you just attended, but what would a couple of those be for people who've never heard of these things before?
Like a couple of
like conventions or networking events?
Yeah. So Women in Animation is a wonderful one because that's where I heard about the Brick Summit. Because Brick Summit, it was just like a gathering of all of these people to talk about the industry. So Women in Animation, Latinx in Animation, that's another one. That's just getting, like, people from Latin American, like, backgrounds and other minorities into the industry. And
there's an upcoming event with Ground Zero.
Yeah, so going to Ground Zero, going to CTN, going just to anything you think that industry people could be at.
Well, and I think it's cool, too, like we were saying at the beginning, at the time when Christian met you, all the time I've known you, you've been very persistent and been working very hard in art.
I just want to drop.
Yeah. But what I'm saying with that is it shows your character, and it also shows in your work. And your work is awesome, and so I want everyone to be able to check it out. So where can they go to find your work?
Working. You're not working.
So my Instagram is Nomadic Momo if you want to see, like, my illustrations. I don't really post any personal stuff. It's just, like, all my art. And then my website is just www.maureenmartinez.com. Just maureenmartinez.com.
And you've got some awesome Twisted Tales stuff up there.
Yes.
You've got illustrations. You got basically all the stuff we've talked about, so everyone should go there and check it out.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It was absolutely delightful to have you.
Thank you. It was really fun to be
And
here.
we can't wait to have you on again when you're the showrunner of
Yeah.
your own show.
Yeah.
I will definitely tell you when I get in. I'll be like, I got it! I'm in!
And immediately we'll schedule your next part.
I know.
networking.
Wow, I'd say that episode was 100%.
100%.
That's because Maureen gives everything she does 100%.
She really does. I think that's one of my big takeaways from this episode is how hard Maureen has not only worked on her craft after switching out of nursing, going into, a totally different field.
So crazy.
But then also, too, how much she pushes herself in storytelling, like not only with Dungeons and Dragons, but with her art.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on Dungeons and Dragons, she's a huge advocate for letting characters tell the story, and I think that's a really wise way of approaching it. Let your characters be full characters. Let them be the driving force for the story. Otherwise, they're just kind of meaningless blahs.
Yeah, and like we talked about, too, having their feelings and emotions dictate kind of the camera angles that you're choosing. As a storyboard artist, like we talk about in the episode, is... telling that story visually. And I think, having characters be the root of that is something that I really took away from this episode.
Yeah, and, it's hard. It's hard to do those things. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that Maureen gives in this episode is that reference is not cheating. You should be looking at reference even if you're storyboarding at that root level of production. Like, you should be looking at professionals' work and getting some ideas, get some inspiration.
Yeah, and using yourself as reference too. And speaking of, everyone should go check out Maureen's work online. So on Instagram, she's Nomadic Momo. And then she also has her website, which is just her name, MaureenMartinez.com. And she's got fantastic storyboards. She just put up a new one this week. And this isn't new as in like when we recorded this 4 months ago. This is brand spanking new, like within the last week.
Getting spiked!
Yes. So please do check that out. And then while you're checking out things online,
You gotta check out that GZA Expo. That's Ground Zero Animation Expo that we're tabling at.
What?
Yep, we'll be there in June from June 8th to June 9th.
It's crazy. I mean, we talked about this the last 2 episodes with Eva Sawinski. Super excited to table at her event. But we are a little busier, though, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, so both of us now have jobs kind of doing stuff that we really enjoy.
This is no surprise to anyone listening. We've talked about animation and the film industry basically the whole time, even though we're supposedly an art podcast about all the kinds of art. But Christian and I are working in the industry. I've been working at Stupid Buddy Studios, which, if you guys remember from, episode 1 or 2, I talk about how I was interning there. And now I'm working there on a show called Crossing Swords. That's all I can say about it. And Christian's been doing some fantastic assistant editing, so...
We're busy, and we want people to know that getting in the industry looks very different for everybody. I don't think there's one specific thing that you're like, I'm in the industry. Working in your field is the industry. Like, you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
That art thing you do, you just keep doing it.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'd like to say about storyboarding is... If you're doing it at home, if you're doing it for a studio, it is such a big field, and you are doing it. If you're drawing, just on your tablet or a piece of paper, you are doing it. And so, because storyboarding is such a big field, particularly in animation, but like Christian brought up in the podcast, also live action, we decided to have another episode about storyboarding because we feel like we could really use it.
It's a big deal in production, and it makes everything so much easier. So... tune in next episode for storyboarding with... we won't tell.
Oh, secret.
It's a secret. You have to watch it or listen to it.
Yeah.
You have to listen to it to find out.
And so for our sign off today, we hand it off to Maureen, which we recorded 4 months ago.
Take it away, Maureen. Is there any way you would like to sign this off?
Keep drawing, kids.
Yeah.